Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode. Back again, finally, for another episode of Creatives Ignite. And I am here with my really, really good friend, Amy Linn. And she and I have worked together. We've done things. She's been to camp. We were in the future together or are in the future together in other groups, but she does so much for her community. She does so much in design and how she thinks. So we talk about a lot of things. She uses Notion in an amazing way. So I know Paul will like it because he likes to use Notion too. And I just think it's neat how there are so many things that I've learned just from Amy talking about her work. And she works primarily in the wine industry. Ever since you graduated, however many years ago, you have been in the wine industry, which I also think is unusual. Sometimes people will get tired of an industry or they'll meander in the design world, and they might do a few things or try to do different things, but you've really found something. And the wine and spirits industry is bigger than maybe we think. So, Amy, without further ado, give them a better intro into who you are, what you do, and where you live.
Well, I don't know if it'll be better, but thank you for your intro. But yeah, I went to school for communication design, and at that time, that was the only way to study graphic design. It was considered an emphasis in graphic design. So I got a Bachelor of Arts from California State University, Chico. Mm-hmm. And actually, before I graduated, I got an internship. I was thinking that I might want to live in Napa. So I came to Napa following my future husband and got a job. So I had that internship over the summer, designed my first wine label, and that was my introduction to wine packaging. And I actually just loved it. And then when I graduated, they hired me on full time. So I've been designing wine packaging ever since for the wine industry.
Which I think is kind of unusual to be in. I mean, a lot of designers it wasn't like you always owned your own business, which you do now, but it's not like that's the only thing, but you've designed or you do, but that is the predominant thing that you have been doing, and you have gotten definitely expert status for sure. But has there ever been a time where you were like, I'm tired of designing wine labels?
I actually have never gotten tired of designing wine labels. I love print design, and there's just like constant, new things that we can learn about and use. And I mean, there's just so many different foils, or there's embossing, and there's a lot of beautiful things that happen in print, and they go on a wine label. So and the way that things have changed through the years, it's like, now we can, do much more elaborate things with, multiple labels on a bottle, or, in die cuts and things like that. So it's actually, I find it fun and interesting. And, and nowadays, labels aren't just all cream colored with black type. I mean, that's still a more reserved, traditional look. But now, everybody sees the ones that have great pictures and things like that. And it's just fun.
Well, and so much has changed from even if I think about what we could do and what was affordable back 20 years ago, 30 years ago, it's so different than what we're able. There's so many more ways that you could do these die cuts that maybe for a short run, we would never have done them, but now it's
Correct.
not that big of a deal. And I think that maybe that's one reason why it hasn't gotten boring, because with technology, as it's continued to develop, all these things that were really high end, blind emboss, or even like a, maybe not emboss, but like, they have it at Vistaprint, what do you call that? Gloss, like a gloss varnish.
Yeah.
That used to be like, oh, that's a whole nother color. We can't do that. That's going to cost more. And it's like, I mean, if Vistaprint, not anything gets prints, I will use Vistaprint sometimes, but I don't think of them as like the top tier of, printing. But if they can do it, oh my goodness, and it's just about knowing about things. And I think that the love for print, which I know a lot of people here have, because they are also, we fell in love with doing print design. So in school, way back when you were in school, did you do packaging, or did you do, like, was there a project for wine packaging?
I actually never took a packaging class, never did any three-dimensional anything in school. But I think for some reason I was able to just see things in three dimension, because you have to consider the whole package. It's not, just flat.
Right.
And, how does it look from all angles and that kind of thing. So, yeah, I'm sure that the packaging instructor was not very happy that I ended up in packaging, but never took his class. But I love it.
I think some people do see things differently. And I think that that's one of the things that makes packaging fun, but it's also the shape of the bottle. Mm-hmm. These are things that I learned from you. So let's just jump in. I want to know what working in, like, if somebody says they worked in the wine and spirits industry, what does that really mean? If somebody said that to you, what would you ask them, I guess? Or how would you?
I'll say this, what I would assume if they were a designer that works in the, alcohol branding, industry, it usually does involve packaging, but just within packaging, it's not just a label. It could be a bottle design. There's a capsule, cork, the shipper carton, could be, fancy things that the wineries send out to their club members, so gift boxes and things like that. I actually designed a scarf one time, and I was thinking about something else that I designed. I can't think of it right now, but there's just lots of opportunities there. But in addition to just the packaging, there's the overall branding as far as like collateral pieces for in the winery, and they have a whole social media realm, which I don't really, that's not my specialty, but I could art direct it because it's about, fitting the brand. There's also signage and, just how, the experience, of somebody going to a winery or to a tasting room, or even if they're only online, what is that experience like for the consumer? So it's all of that.
So that gives us an idea of a range. So with one winery, we might think, if we hadn't worked in this industry, that one winery, it might not be very much work, but one winery could be a ton of work. Could you explain, I guess it kind of leads into the next question, but the different varietals, and I don't know if I spelled it right. I felt like it kept underlining it, InDesign kept underlining it for me, but there is branding challenges. And one of the things, when we were talking about wine one time, and you were like, well, there's different tiers, the types of wine you have, your Merlot and your, I don't know, Chardonnays, and you have those things, which I think are just different varietals, different varieties of grapes, right? But then there's also like the top tier, the very expensive. If we were just talking about Merlot, there might be a top tier Merlot, there might be a medium tier Merlot, and then you have your nicer, but then you have your everyday or something. I mean, there could be 4 to 5. I mean, I don't know how many levels there could be one winery. And then I know one of the wineries you're working with now, sometimes that they might make other things that might be outside. Maybe they make salsa. Who knows what they make with their extra grape things, but maybe they make some other kind of spirit, or which is, again, another challenge in if it's something that is maybe maybe it's not something to consume. Maybe it's for like, who knows? People make, maybe they're doing something with the grape seeds and it's a sugar scrub or something. I have no idea, but
Right.
it could be, and it's about just thinking kind of outside of the box. But what could you kind of take us through what a really big, because we might not be thinking about a wine industry or one vineyard having this many kind of different brands inside, or I call them baby brands. I don't know what they're really called, but out of one
Yeah.
parent.
Yeah. So it's true that, so I think that the way that it starts out, there is a winemaker who makes a wine, a particular wine. And then as they get more into it, it's kind of like they're dipping their foot in the water, just testing it out. And it's well received. And so then they start to make more wines, and they usually will try different varieties or varietals. So maybe they start with the Chardonnay, and then they end up making a Cabernet Sauvignon, and then there's a red wine blend, or, there's all of these different varietal names. And they're, usually going to have a similar label, and that would be a tier. They're all up around the same price point. It's all presented as kind of this group for that winery or for that winemaker.
So it would be one brand of that would be like the original line of products, maybe kind of.
Yeah, it's probably, considered their original line of products within their brand. But say they, eventually have a winery and they want to, and they're, sourcing grapes from special vineyards, like some of them have names and are in certain regions that are very prestigious, and that they get grapes from there. They don't want to put that into their just regular old blend. They want to let people know that this is wine from this particular vineyard. And in my view, it deserves a different label that really shows that it's that ultra premium, because they're going to also have a higher price tag on that. And I actually have some examples of a project that I'm working on.
That would be awesome. It's just, for me, when we've been talking about this, sometimes I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't think it was this deep or this wide of, and when you're starting, if you're either redesigning or you're starting with somebody, maybe if you started on their very first original, maybe it comes easier, but I know you've had to come in and redesign and adjust by thinking, and they already had multiple lines or multiple tiers of products and multiple products at each level. And that's a lot to keep in your head, to be consistent, but also different in what they were doing. And I think that is a branding project. That is a design system project. And I think it's really interesting.
For sure. And I find that is just so fun to solve that problem. So can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So this is an example of a project that I'm currently working on. And this is, their base level. Well, actually, this is not all their base level tier, but say, these 4 here are their lower level tiered wines, the bottom tier. And then this is their top tier. But from my view, there's not that much differentiation between each of the labels.
Right.
And so if somebody is at a restaurant and, they see this, say they see this one on the table, they might think that it's the M5. See if you can see that right there, M5. Actually,
you go a little wider. Yeah, that helps us.
Okay. So, so anyway, there's not a huge difference between these. And especially, looking at them side by side, you can see a difference. But if you were to see them at a distance, or just see one after having this particular one, which is their top tier, and then you see this one and it's being, this is say it retails for $400. This one retails for $65. And then they see the price tag $65. They're going to think, oh, wow, I'm getting that $450 one at a $65 price. Oh my gosh, this is great. Well, it's actually not the same wine. And it can be confusing to the consumer.
Absolutely. So this is a great design problem. And it is not at this point when you have something like this, but you're also thinking about right now 5 different tiers. Is that what, or is it one?
So I would consider these 4 here to be part of the same tier. And there's actually one more that's not, I don't have an image of, but it is sold just to their club members. But it's also a separate tier. But this is, by far their top tier. And there's a couple others that I will show you after this one.
Okay, awesome.
So let's see.
So this was the design challenge. They came up, they had this and said, we want this to what? What did they come to you wanting?
They actually came to me and wanted me to just design their lowest tiered, redesign their lowest tiered label. And I went back to them and said, and I actually presented the 3 different tiers in my first meeting, because I knew that if I redesigned this label and, to a standard that fit the winery and was appropriate for them, because they're a very prestigious, high-end winery, that this lowest tier would then end up looking better than the top tier. So they really needed to address all 3 tiers. And so that was my suggestion. So you can see in this image, that this one doesn't look that much more special than this one.
Absolutely. So then I just want to go back to this, because this was like a great challenge of, well, we could just design this tier, but if you know that there are going to be other problems, sometimes it's time to push back and say, hey, but really you had to think about this before. What would it look like on the M5? What would it look like in the tier above that? And how could those be different? And if you weren't thinking about those, then it might have really adjusted or messed up what you would have designed for them later. So it was really important that you go ahead and think about those now at this stage.
Yeah. And I think that, whenever I'm tackling a design project, I look to the future, and I ask them, what's your desired future state, so to speak. So, I mean, if they really hope to, be selling their product, at this top tiered rate and, or top price and compete with the most expensive ones in the world, then, okay, we need to plan for that. So maybe it doesn't start off that way, but there's a plan in mind for, how to get there visually, And then I wanted to show you all of their wines. So they also have this one. This is Eurasian, and this is so these are all considered Crep Brothers. And the actual name of the wine is Eurasian by Crep Brothers. And this one is Synchrony by Crep Brothers. And then here's the M5. And these are all, this is top tier, next one down, and then the lowest tier. Anyway, they needed to work on their own and stand apart. There's not several varietals within the Eurasian category. There's not several varietals within Synchrony. This is the only one, and this is the only one, as well as the M5. There's just one.
So the challenge was, how can, in bottle wise, how did you get good at knowing what bottles to do? Or
so the bottle shape is pretty much industry standard.
Okay.
And so this particular one, this is the Chardonnay, which is in a dark bottle, which is a little more unusual, but the shape is very much a Chardonnay shape. And I actually don't remember off the top of my head what all of these bottle names are, but they all have a particular name. So, we didn't change the bottle shape for their redesign, but you can see these are the newly designed labels. I kept this little graphic here. You can see it up here. This is their logo. You know, it was a signifier, you know, something that people would recognize. Mm-hmm. And then part of their story is that they actually founded some very prestigious vineyard here in Napa. And in order to do that, they had to blast away tons and tons of stone and lava rock and so on. And it's hard to tell in these images, but there's a stone pattern that's a blind emboss that goes around each one of these. So it really drives home that stone idea. And, you know, it's a big part of their story.
That's cool. So then in the middle one, the white Sauvignon Blanc.
Yeah, Sauvignon Blanc.
Did you go with a frosted glass?
No, it's just the image that the company
No worries.
did. So it's a clear glass. This is a closer representation, but I think the color is a little off on it. But this is it actually is clear, and it has this, you know, beautiful kind of diamond pattern in the bottom, and then the top is really interesting too.
Yeah,
it's a very, very pretty bottle.
That's cool.
And then I wanted to show you the before and after for the Eurasian. This is again the blind.
Can you blow it up a little bit?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's better.
So here's the stone pattern. Again, it's blind embossed. It's hard to see in this image. And Eurasian is actually the time in the vineyard when the grapes go from green to red or to dark purple. And so that's why it has this green to purple in the label. But, you know, the idea was to, you know, show that it's Krupp Brothers, and Krupp Brothers is still in there, but Eurasian becomes more important.
And it's significantly different, looks different.
Yeah. Still part of the same winery, but has its own look. And then here's the Synchrony. This also has a stone pattern in the background. And, you know, this is a die cut coming off the top, and this has embossing in it and so on. And then, you know, so it's making it, again, look a little bit different than the rest of the line.
Which helps it to stand out and helps people to know which bottle goes to which was really a problem in the whole brand earlier.
Exactly. And then now here's their top tier. So this is actually etched directly onto the bottle, the M5. And then this is a metal coin that we had produced in the UK that is glued to the bottle. So, you know, it looks much more expensive. You know, it looks like it should be commanding a higher price tag.
And it looks different, but it still has that Krupp Brothers. And I've seen those little medals, and as you were trying to get them to make them, and they had to be curved slightly so that they would go on. And there was all these things that her love of print design really helped. But overall, there is a significant difference in the whole family and all the tiers, where it's easier to see which one is which. The Synchrony stands out as its own because it is different, which I think, as we're thinking about design systems, if there was something else in the M5 line, you know, it would be etched. That would be one of the things. And it would, you know, maybe it's going to be a letter and a number, but it's going to be at that same sort of tier. And then, but you're creating packaging that will go together. I know that the Krupp Brothers, they also have a line that has some with images, right?
Yeah, they do have a whole character line, and maybe when I stop the screen sharing, I can find those to show. And then actually, here's the whole line now, and you can see where the medallion, you know, is repeated throughout, and then most of them have the stone pattern. And the other thing I wanted to show you about the coin is that it has more detail, and the brothers that are part of it actually become more prominent. So, and there's a lot of sculptured, it's not just a flat emboss, it's sculptured emboss. So it's actually really special. And I wish I had a better image of it. And then here's their motto, born from stone and clothed in elegance.
Nice.
So
that's awesome. Okay.
Yeah, I'm happy to look for those character labels if you want to see those.
Sure.
It's a whole nother grouping of wines that they sell. And I'm actually working on one for them within that line that will be an export to South Korea.
But again, thinking some of them already existed, the characters, you had to, if they're creating a new, how many, I always think about, do you remember old commercials that were for insurance? Like I don't remember any of them because they were so boring. It was like, you're in good hands with Allstate or whatever. But now it's like, there's Flo and there's the Gecko and there's the Mayhem guy. Those are my favorite. And there's tons. And I always think about, you don't need something that if it wouldn't have been good if whoever was doing the characters did winter, spring, summer, fall, because then you're limited to 4 and it doesn't have the life. It can't have, you have to completely change everything if you decide to go. So sometimes there are limits to, if you did something that was the 12 months, well, that's a limit. But if you do something like these character designs, what are things that, okay, if I'm looking at the whole, if I was designing something and some of it already exists, this can be a frustration. It also can be a really good challenge. So instead of wiping everything out, you kept the character designs that already were in existence. How do you decide, like, what are things that you are pulling out as that design system for even like the M5? I don't know if there's an M7 also. Is that kind of the same tier as the M5, but it had label. It wasn't etched in.
Correct. It is just a label to work with the M5, and it's just to give them an option down the road. So I don't know, what their plans are exactly for this, but it is I know it's on their website and for sale right now. It was basically, kind of a trial to see how that would work.
But I think you have to decide, okay, well, here's at this top tier or this middle tier, or this bottom tier, whatever number tier it is, what is going to be the things that make this system a system, right?
Yeah.
Same thing with the characters. You have characters that already exist. You're looking at all of them. This could be the other Amy designs, characters for a hamburger place. Well, now they need a new character. Well, are you going to wipe out all of them and redo all of them? Or is there something that connects all the characters together? And it's the same thing here. We have to look at it, see what the system is, and then how could you make a new thing in that system? Does that come easy to you? Is that how you worked when they said, hey, we want you to work on the character line?
So I would say, at this point, it comes fairly easily to me. But I think that when you're, for a new designer starting out, you'd want to, try to find something that is special, that is repeatable, that is not, that can be something that is memorable. And even if it's used in different ways and, different techniques, like, for example, the metal piece versus, embossed, and some are not embossed, and maybe they're not even foil, but, just that repetition of that, that logo. And I do want to find the character labels because they are really, really
neat. There was how many before you started getting involved to work on that
there's
line?
Actually probably 8 or 9 character labels.
So this is hard. This is a lot.
Here's one. I'll just show you. So that's one of the characters. Ooh, it's really hard with the. So I'm doing one to fit within this line. So this one's called the Water Witch. They also have the Doctor. They have Black Bart, who was a character, in the Napa Valley. They all have a story that goes with them. And one of the brothers is named Bart, and one of the brothers is a doctor. So, it's like there's lots of interesting things.
That's cool.
Ways that they all tie in. And, so they probably have, I don't know, 8 or 10 different characters. And it just depends, not all of them are necessarily bottled every year.
Right.
It depends on, the winemaker and, what grapes they have and which ones they think, as they're doing their blending and so on, will fit, which label. So anyway, it gives them options,
So when you were looking at it and they had 8 or so in that line, what were you, or what, if anybody, it doesn't have to be just for the Krupp brothers, but if anybody had something like that, what was something that you did to try to figure out the design system that already existed? Or maybe it was looser and you now have to like rein it in. What would you do? Because I think this is something that we have to deal with, even if we're not doing wine, we're still working in systems, especially as we're working with companies that are growing because they end up having more products or more areas that they need baby brands for or packaging for, but we need it to be clear to the consumer. So what were some of the things you were able to hone in and look for to pick out a system, or what would you tell people to do to find that?
Well, on this particular one, there's always the central character. And then there's a series of small illustrations or icons that reinforce the character's story. And then I would also stick within the same, general color palette. It wouldn't make sense to do something neon, to go with all of these, for example, so you just kind of, and then, when I am designing, I put things up and stand back and look, does it look like it fits within this system, So, placement on the label, is generally the same, and I think to most people looking at it, they might not notice a slight shift. So you can slightly shift as the designer working on it, you'll notice it. And maybe somebody who's like really studying might notice it. But generally to the consumers, they'll recognize it as being part of that, that winery and that system. And, oh, okay, there's another, character label from Krupp Brothers, and I want to try that one. So, another system project that I did was actually a sign system for the city of Napa. And it was to, I needed to figure out a way to show each of the historic districts so that they would stand on their own, but still be part of a system. And I didn't grab any images.
That was one of the ones you had sent me for the promos, right? So if you're thinking,
website.
If you're thinking about that, because that is another good. So color wise, I think you may have different colors, but they're all kind of within it's not like they're all blues, but they all are like, if you're thinking about a color wheel, they're all as far out on the color wheel as you would think, right? Like they're not like some are neon and some are really pastel. They're in a system, I think, within there, even color wise.
It actually depends on the project, and frankly, it could make sense for something to be neon and something else to be, super muted. It just depends on the project. And this particular one that I'm sharing now, this is the sign system for the historic district.
Did you do all those illustrations?
So this one in the background and this one in the background was a different illustrator, someone who
you contracted an illustrator.
Yes, yeah. I did everything in here and then created
but like the map, you were drawing the map and things. Yeah.
I hire illustrators and calligraphers and photographers as needed. I love to people who are better at things than me, and it's like, I don't know everything about everything. So, I work with professionals basically.
Yeah.
And if there's budget, we definitely would hire somebody to do something better than I could do it. And actually this is all very historic to that district. This is based on an image, a photograph, that's in this background. And so this is actually, so for this particular system, this color changes per district, this icon changes per district, and then the background illustration changes per district. And then I chose the colors based on when the districts were developed. So the colors don't necessarily work with each other, but they work within the era. So like this one is from the 1930s and more of a pinkish hue than these ones.
I think they work as a system
developed
even.
in 1900. Yeah.
I
But,
mean,
you can see that it works as a system because, the shape is the same. The general idea of it is the same. And then there's, the main icon that will change for each of the districts. And then here's a close-up of one. So this medallion also is the logo done in bronze, and this stays the same. So this and this remain the same except for this color change. This color stays the same. And then this image changes.
is that sign metal and then it's printed, or is it like a flag?
It is metal, and then they apply a coating to it. These are three-dimensional letters up here, and then this is the bronze medallion that's added to it. So
Sure
yeah, they're metal.
It's definitely more than just wine labels.
Yeah.
So is that in the ground?
And yeah, this is a bronze marker in the ground, and then we had to pour concrete, so I created a little stamp. It's hard. It was still wet, so it's hard to see what the stamp is there.
Oh,
but
cool.
Here's the what the graphic is that gets stamped on all of them. And this was just a pilot project, so we only did the one district. And this is an example of, how they might award a historic building with this as, a medallion. And they didn't say that they wanted that. They didn't say that they wanted the things in the sidewalk. I just presented all of that idea. They just wanted a sign, but it didn't really make sense to have one sign. It really needed to be a system. And so I presented it that way. And actually had to present it to city council, and which, me, I don't like speaking in public. So that was huge, but rewarding still.
Yeah.
And then here's an example of one, hopefully it will be installed in the future. But, and then here's all the districts.
By their color.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Anyway, that was a really fun project.
So that would not be what I would, if you said you did packaging wine and spirits, I wouldn't have thought that, but you are in Napa Valley where there are other opportunities, and sometimes we have to just get involved. And I know that's something that you are very involved in your just local area, and knowing people and getting to know people. They may not think that this is something they need, but that could be where your expertise says, hey, have y'all thought about doing this? Could I present some options? How much of stuff like that is what you've had to do in just being a solopreneur and trying to see where people could elevate the city or elevate other things because I don't think some people know, they don't think anything about it, but then you do it and you're like, whoa, they're like, wow, we could definitely be a lot better. But how often do you think we need to be, as designers, just kind of pushing ourselves to do some of that? Well,
I think that it's actually rewarding, as a designer to do that sort of thing. So I think if you see something that could be improved and you want to take it on as a, either pro bono, which I've done for schools or for a music festival that I work on and things like that, they need the help. And I see, it's something that I can do to help out, but also something I want to do, that it's a good fit. If I was just starting out and I had, an idea for like the sign program, I was hired for that. So that wasn't done pro bono, but if there was something like that, I think, you could create a whole system and then present it, to somebody, or just even put it in your portfolio as like a passion project. I forget what wording you would use, but, let them know that it didn't actually get built, but this is something that, you could do.
But even like your work with Porch Fest, like you've worked with Porch Fest, you can explain to them what Porch Fest is. You've worked with them for many years, and you could have just done the bare minimum. Like you could have, but you use this as a tool stretching thing, because it also helped you in thinking of it. You're really good at thinking in systems and thinking how things go. So in that, explain what Porch Fest is so that I don't butcher it.
So Porch Fest is a small community music festival. So the idea is that local musicians play on local porches, and we do it here in our historic neighborhoods. And I think, and it's actually a international thing now. Porch Fest started in Ithaca, New York, and then in Napa, we started like 11 or 12 years ago. So we were the first one west of the Mississippi. But,
That's cool.
It's grown into this really big music festival, but it's for free for people to attend. We don't advertise because we're not trying to get, outside people to come. And we're a big tourist destination as it is, being in Napa Valley wine country. And so we don't want to say, hey, everybody from everywhere else come to our town for this. This is really like for the locals, put on by locals. And it's all volunteers. Nobody gets paid for it.
But sometimes if somebody was just starting out, or they were just wanting to get involved in something, but they wanted to try out, I think that this has been a place for you to experiment and for you to try different things. And I think you got involved and said, hey, I'm going to try this. That's where the reins are kind of off, because they're just happy for you to be doing anything. But I think if we're trying out new things, I think doing something locally or for a nonprofit or for something, like, go try it out for somebody.
Yeah. And actually, so that was the case with social media. I'd never done social media or newsletter blasts. So I've been doing that for Porch Fest. How
many years?
I've done 5 years now.
It's a lot of years. Okay.
Yeah. But I completely revamped, all of their graphics, built a new website, brought a store online, and, we sell t-shirts. So, designing a t-shirt's nothing new, but, trying to put it out there, to appeal to a huge range of people, because we get, from babies to people in their 80s coming to this event. So how can we sell the most t-shirts, that type of thing. That's how we pay to put on Porch Fest, is through t-shirt sales or donations. But there's been an opportunity to try lots of different things, and just, taking the initiative and, I think that, they could really use this. Let me give it a try. It's like the first one might not be so great, but then, you try it again and you get better. And then pretty soon you're like, okay, well, this is something I could actually offer as a service because I have enough experience.
And you realize that, or you either say, hey, I don't want to offer this as a service, right? It could be like, oh, I definitely don't want to do that. I've tried it, and you've given it, it's not maybe just once you've tried it, but you've tried it multiple times, and like, I can do it. It's just not it's not where my best work is, or my zone of genius. So I have to ask you this, because of all these brand things, or even Porch Fest, thinking about all these things, all the things for the Krupp brothers, or all the different wineries that you work with and the labels that you're designing. How do you just have a great memory? How do you keep everything straight? And what, do you have any hacks for us?
Okay. Well, I have a terrible memory. But my biggest help is I am a Notion, devotee, I guess I could say. And actually I did pull together, a few images of how I work in Notion. And I can show you the CRUP,
please,
CRUP stuff in Notion. So what I do is I'll start with a client and create just a page that's just for them. And within that page, I'll have, I keep all of my meeting notes, correspondence, creative brief, any documents. I actually have developed a timekeeping system, that also attaches to a job. I create, have a database of job numbers and project numbers and things like that. So, but it's all in Notion.
Are you taking notes during a client call on your computer, or are you taking notes on paper and then transcribing it later?
I do it on paper and then put it into my database. And it's actually a way, I've always worked better that way. It's kind of a way to reinforce what I just heard. And then I can add more information when I'm actually typing it in. I try not to let too much time go between when I write it down and then when I put it into my system. But I can always, do screenshots or, add in a web page or things like that help to convey what I need to within my system. But, just this is, for example, the production information for Krupp Brothers. And in fact, you can see a few of the character labels.
Oh, yeah,
here. Yeah. So here's the bride, the doctor, water witch, the wheelman. Here's the doctor again, the professor. And there's actually a whole lot more. I haven't updated it all. Mm-hmm. But the same database you can look at in a different way. So this is, these are the images, but the same database, you can see how many, this is just for production, but I put, where it is within the scheduling, timeline. So if it's, every wine label has to get approved by the government. So, once it's been approved, I check off the box. Once it's been approved by a client, I check off the box here. Here's the name, the vintage date, the alcohol, which bottle we used, how many were printed, the size, and then the varietal, all of that kind of information.
When did you start? Because Megan just said, I want to start using Notion more. Me too, Megan. So when did you start using it, and how? This is probably a whole nother episode. I'm pretty sure we've talked about, I think I've talked to Paul and you both about how y'all use Notion, and it's so different. But how has this kind of revolutionized the way that you're able to work by using this tool?
Well, for me, it's huge because I used to have, I still technically have Evernote. I just never use it, and I had, all my emails and I would save PDFs. And so I can now upload PDFs to Notion. So I can still save the PDF. So it's on my hard drive, but it's also within my Notion database or in my Notion in the program or what have you. It's just, for me, it's huge because everything is in one spot and I don't feel so scattered.
And you can have it on your phone. It's in multiple tablets. Once you update it, you don't have to update it in multiple places. It's everywhere. So Jeremy Kennedy had a question. He says, is it ever a challenge to work with competing wineries? And do any of them pay extra for exclusivity, which I think could be an issue?
I would say, no, it's not hard to, it's not a thing to have to, work with competing wineries. There are so many wineries, but they all have their own brand. And I think, a lot of it is just building trust, so I have, built a lot of trust with my clients, and they, for me, I just compartmentalize. It's like, okay, this is what's best for this client. And then I'm in a completely different headspace, and I even play different music if I'm working with a different, on a different project. And, every decision I make is for that particular winery. So I don't, and there's only so many designers that specialize in wine packaging. I mean, there's a lot, but it's still a finite amount at this point. So, I think the biggest thing there is trust.
What
was the other question?
It was about exclusivity. What if
Oh.
someone did say, "Hey, we know that you also do so and so, but
Mhm.
we don't want to compete with somebody else that's in maybe the same region. They want you
Mhm.
could work with somebody in San Francisco, but not somebody else in Napa or something." So for exclusivity rights, I mean, I think that this is something that um, people might have to deal with if you were doing stuff for bands and they didn't want you to do it for anybody else. They just wanted, especially if your
Mhm.
work was very um illustrative and it was had a specific style and they wanted that style for them
Mhm.
only. What would you say? I know that it's not something you've had to do, but what would you say to somebody, or if they asked you to do something like that?
Well, I think it wouldn't be practical for my business because it's really my specialty. I mean, what
You
else
would,
would I
right?
do? But I think that, you know, I think it's a really big ask. And if you are willing to consider that as a designer or illustrator, then, you need to be paid appropriately.
It's more like
So,
working in house in a way,
yeah.
right?
Hmm.
I know that I had totally not the same, but it was in California. I had two clients that were retirement residences, and they were like, one was in Cupertino and one was in a neighboring, which is all kind of like near San Francisco, but they
Yeah.
were within 10 minutes away from each other. And um they didn't ask for exclusivity. I don't know if they even noticed that I was doing it for someone else, but it would look totally different. It wasn't the
Yeah.
same. It's not going to be the same. It's a different um because they're a different company. We're going to tell their story. I'm a good enough designer. You're a good enough designer that we don't just have this one hit that we're going to design and it's going to look the same. And I
Yeah.
think that is exactly what you said. It's trust, but it's over time how you can show what you've been able to do and how you've been able to work them differently and how things look differently. Everything you design doesn't look the same. And I
Right.
think that helps you to build the trust. But do you have that in your portfolio, or is everything in your portfolio looking the same? Then I can understand where a client might say, "Hey, looks like everything you do looks like A. I need something that looks like B. I really like you. I want you to work with me, but are you going to be able to do something in another style?"
Hmm.
And I think that that's where I think we have to be able to prove that we can work. Um, we have to have the depth. You have the depth for sure, but then we also have to have different styles that we can lean into for different things. Just even with the
Yeah.
Krebs brothers and the character designs to the M5 to the lowest here. I mean, those are very different.
Yeah. And I think, like if I was an illustrator, if I wanted to do the same look and really be known for that, then that's what I would show. But if I really wanted to, and I think it limits you on how much you can be hired. And it can be dated at a certain time too. So, if I were an illustrator, I would want to do lots of different types of design or, illustrations. I mean, do them really well, but show that you can do a wide variety. And if I was an illustrator, once again, I would maybe show my illustrations in different ways. So
Right.
maybe it's on a t-shirt, but then maybe it's on a package. I mean, you're going to get paid more generally for someone who's going to hire you to illustrate a package versus a t-shirt, but
Right.
you can show it in different ways on a mural, and things like that. And, I mean, it could be the same illustration in lots of different ways, but then use a different type of illustration in a different way.
So Jeremy's got another question. You're doing great, Jeremy, on the questions. So he says question number 2, and he said great answers for question number 1. So since the M5 and the M5/M7 etching has no product details, how do you get approval from the government since the bottle doesn't say what's inside? Now I know, Jeremy, I couldn't see the back of the bottle, so
Yeah.
I know that how
I
do
think
you?
it's a great question, and I will show you.
It is a
Actually, I have
great
it here.
question. Good job, Jeremy. I'm glad. That's so Jeremy said in the chat, he said, haha, thanks. I feel like I'm there too. That's exactly why I do these lives. So if anybody's watching on YouTube, I want you to feel like you're here. I know everybody over there in the chat I have met. Either Brian Bundy's, I think but I've sent stuff to your house. So I know I could get to you if I needed to. I mean, I'm not a stalker or anything, buddy, but the thing is that's it. This is for us. And that's why I do Creatives Ignite like this, because the community aspect is really important. And I wanted somewhere where I could learn and I could ask questions. So please, I love it, Jeremy. Keep the questions coming, and anybody else. All right, Amy.
It's a very good question. So it used to be, well, let me just say that this is what we considered to be the front of the bottle. And it used to be that you had to, so legally, all of this information has to be within a certain distance of each other. Not this is like the government warning, but the varietal, so the name of the winery and then the varietal and the appellation, which is where the grapes were grown, they all have to be within a certain distance of each other without anything in between. And there's a lot of reflection.
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, we see it. Yeah.
So anyway, it's all on the back now. So, at a store, not that this will ever be in a store, but if it were in a store, rather than have the back, which is still pretty, facing outwards, it would be this. And so somebody would pick it up and then see all the information.
So is the back also etched, or is that screen printed? It is also.
Actually, you know what? I said etched, but this is screen printed.
I remember when we were talking about when this was being built, I think I was like, oh, anyway. So, but even the back is screen printed also, or is it a label?
Yes, it is screen printed. Yeah.
So one thing, and this is tiny, but this is why I know I don't do packaging, because sometimes in all bottles are like this, they have different widths and then they come in. And if you don't design it to be wider, or it doesn't go down correctly. How did you learn that? If you didn't take the packaging class in college, was that in your internship? Has that just been, is it trial and error? You take a bottle and you try to put your thing on it and it doesn't work, and then you figure it out? Like, how have you learned that?
Well, I would say that, from when I originally started working as an intern, I probably at that point was working on bottles that were tapered, is what it's called. So, and this is a tapered bottle where it's wider at the shoulder of the bottle than at the base of the bottle. And so if there's a paper label and you just print out a, square paper label and you put it on there, it looks crooked. So trial and error, you would just, eliminate millimeter by millimeter until it looks vertical. And there's actually a seam on the bottle on both sides that goes up and down. So I do it. I actually measure from the paper to the seam, top and bottom, to make sure it's the same. When it gets to production time, you have to get that precise. It just has to be perfect when it goes to print, because you can't, different than things that are online where they can be changed, tweaked a little bit here or there. Print, you have that one chance. So anyway, it has to be perfect when it goes to the printer.
And I know one thing that I've seen you do, and I know we're out of time, but you have gone while they were labeling, and you've taken pictures, and you have some of those. I've seen some of those on social media for you, or maybe you might put those on your website. How do you decide, and how do you get, I know there's trust obviously with different, your people, but how do you say, hey, can I come and take some pictures during the labeling? Do you put it on their website also? Are you, how do you get the in to do some of that stuff? Because that is really cool and it makes it a lot neater.
Actually, I should post more. I do have some of that video and so on, and I need to, thanks for the reminder. But
they are really cool, Amy.
I will connect with the printer, and I'm very involved with the print and production portion of whatever it is that I'm doing, whether it's the metal fabrication or, and I talk to printers before it actually is ready to be sent, to make sure that everything that I want it to look like is doable. So sometimes things have to be adjusted, or, or they'll say, well, they'll have suggestions for me, different papers that, can hold a better emboss and things like that. So I work closely with them. And then when it comes time for actual production, some printers don't want to have anybody there. But, as a new designer, on a new project, I think they're much more open to having somebody, with a brand new label come and make sure the colors are right and things like that. So it's just about, creating a relationship with the manufacturer, whether it's the, screen print, etching, or printer.
And the embossing too, right? Like you had with those rocks, there were sometimes they will push, but a good printer is going to be like, okay, let's try it. I don't know if this will do it. Let's try it. And it's about finding, like, what would be a good question if you were hunting for a new printer, and maybe you didn't know exactly what you were going to be doing. What kind of questions would you ask to see? Because you are pushing them to be a better quality, do different things that they haven't done. How do you vet out printers for something like that?
Actually, a lot of it comes from just them sending samples. I always ask for samples, and they're usually very happy to send samples because, of course, they want new customers. But and I'll tell them, I have contacted lower end printers, and I think this is, it's hard for me to go to like direct mail design.
Right. The Vistaprint.
Yeah.
This show brought to you by Vistaprint. I'm just kidding.
Yeah. And where I've done such high end printing, so my standards are maybe unreasonable, or,
Right.
In that
you have higher
realm.
Standards.
Yeah. But anyway, I get print samples, and then, we'll talk on the phone, and, you can tell just even like through email and things like that, how responsive are they, to even you reaching out the first time and things like that.
I mean, even that medallion, you had to go to the UK to have it done. So you were having to search. You had to find someone who was willing to try, because it was going to be small. It needed to be curved. And it also had embossing in it. So like some of that is going to be, they send you test samples, and then you have to be, which me and you both are really people pleasers, but you can really like hold your own on this. You're like, it's not good enough. And so how did you develop, this will be maybe my last question, but how did you develop that? Did being a mom and advocating for your kids, standing up, like, what were some of the things that helped you to grow that? I don't know, like, you're not gonna, I don't want to, sometimes
I think I understand your question.
Okay. Yeah. You answer it then.
I think the biggest, key there is just know, to pick your battles. Sometimes, it's not a critical thing. And other times it's just absolutely critical. And I think like, with a new project, it needs to be right the first time, so that when they go to duplicate it, you're not involved at that point, because they should have it all dialed in. So, and just clear communication. This, and I try to send pictures. I try to, I draw things out, or, photographs, or, whatever it is that might help to convey what I'm trying to achieve. This is what I'm trying to get to, and how can you help me achieve this?
I love that.
And then if it's not quite right, just say, well, it's not quite right. Can we try X? And I try actually not to tell them specifically what to do, but more what the goal is, because they might know how to get there better than I could tell them to get there.
Right. Because that's
it's
not your
like
specialty.
Add more red, because, just, that it needs to be closer to this color. And then they might know that, oh, it's actually adding more blue and whatever,
Right.
So
that's great. That's great. So what's next for you? And then I'm going to share your links.
So what's next for me is, there's actually a brandy label that's in the works, and will be, it's been approved. It's going to be going to print soon. I just need to do the final, final art for that. And then, like I mentioned, the label that's going to be exported to South Korea. So those are both.
So is
in
that
the
like a
works.
white label? Are there white
No,
labeling?
it's still Krupp Brothers,
Okay. Mm-hmm.
and but they just wanted a specific character. So, and I don't know that it's going to be one of the same wines that's already bottled or a different wine blend. I don't know that information other than to know, the information that they've given me to put on the label, alcohol percentage and stuff like that.
Yeah. And I think alcohol for brandy and the facts for like Coca-Cola or whatever are different and to wine are different in every country. So you have to be up on where those are on each government site, I guess, right? If it's going to, which is a whole nother thing. Again, thank goodness for Notion. You can keep all that stuff where you got that stuff there.
Well, and things are constantly changing too. So I just go directly to the U.S. government website for, legal requirements on, type sizes and things like that. And for exports, if I can't find the information, I'll find an expert who will have that information. They're actually compliance experts within the alcohol industry. That's like their whole job is just compliance, because it is a big job, not just for labeling, but for other things as well.
Right. That's awesome. All right. Well, you guys can find her at Linn, Linn, Design Studio, onestudio.com. And on Instagram, Linn, Linn, Design Studio. Instagram.com/Linn Design Studio. And then just for the rest of the month, which is, I know, only a day, but if you were late and you didn't get to do Imagine Number, you could do Imagine Number in a day. It's fun, and I'm going to be compiling a whole bunch of images and asking people to come on early in the new year of just for the Imagine Number. And if you want to do Imagine Number with me, you can just go to creativesignite.com/Imagine Number /hyphen 2023. If you just do Imagine Number, it'll come up as well. And then we're still trying to raise money for Julie Reed, who is in her second round of cancer, and we just want to beat it. And so if you want to help Doc and Julie raise some money, and they have 4 little girls, and so if you're saving the tatas again, you can go to gofundme.com/F. I don't know why it's an F, but save-the-TAS-again. And they've done great at raising some money. We started helping them out doing that each week. And I just love Doc. And I love Julie. So I'm just happy to share that. And if you have extra funds this Christmas and you want to share it, that would be awesome. Thank you, Amy, so much for being here. You did awesome. And it was I always learn new things. Jeremy, way to go, asking all the questions, buddy. I think it's fun to learn, and it's fun to think about things in new ways. I love the way your brain thinks about the whole system, but I also love that you use Notion, and we'll have you back on to do something with Notion. Paul's going to have to do something as well. So, and probably will as well, because y'all all three use it in different ways. And I think it would help me. Maybe we'll do a workshop, something. I don't know. We're going to do something. Y'all will just have to say yes. So, thank you, Amy. And just thanks for sharing. And just so everybody else knows, we have one more show. It'll be next week for the year. And then I am just going to work on some other videos during the month of December. And then we'll start back in January. So one more show. Sorry, it's been kind of, I don't know, flighty a little bit, but my computer died and it got hit by lightning. And so I get a new computer. Oh, and I was going to share this. I don't know, Amy. I didn't know this, and I should have been asking my computer guy all these years. So I go to the Apple guy, and in Mobile, we don't have an Apple store. So I just went to the guy. It's called the Computer Store. the computer store. And I can't remember if the guy's named Richard or David. I used to call him Richard and then somebody else called him David. So now I don't call him anything. So I'm like, I know it's one of them, but I can't remember. Maybe he's changed his name. I don't know. But it's one of those two, but I don't say anything. And he never says, hey, it's Richard from the computer store. He's like, hey, Diane. He just starts talking to me. So anyway, but so the lightning blew out this thing at one of my ports, and I was just going to get the port fixed. And it is time to get a new computer. And I just have a laptop. Some people have laptops. So I was like, okay, well, how, because I give my old computer to my husband. And so I need this computer still to work. And he said, oh, well, it'll be about $1,000, but you'll get an extra terabyte. And I was like, well, how long is this computer going to last? He's like, 4 or 5 years. And I was like, so it's like me getting a new computer for only $1,000 instead of $4,500, which I bought last time. And I said, could I have been doing this all along? And he's like, yes, you could have just been upgrading your box, like take the stuff out and put new stuff in. Anyway, so I said, well, how old can you go? And he's like, well, what, you have a 2000, I said, I had a 2014 machine. That's the one John uses at home. And he said, okay, well, we can upgrade that for $95. And it'll last John for another 5 years. Now, granted, John only really uses the internet. But anyway, I think that is, I didn't know. And maybe I'm just an idiot and I just didn't know. But I mean, that's a lot of money, $3,500 at least I'm saving by just go to your computer or call my guy, Richard or David. I don't know what
whatever
his name is,
is,
but I can give you the name of the thing. But that would be worth it to me. Just to be taking the guts and pulling him out. So hopefully this week I feel like I'm on borrowed time every time I'm using my computer, but hopefully I'll get it a new insides soon. Hopefully this week. I already paid for it. Maybe Richard David's out with my $1,000, but I don't think so. He's a pretty reliable guy. Anyway, the end. Did you know?
Can I say one more thing?
Please. We are still recording.
Okay. Just if I'm always hiring illustrators and calligraphers, photographers, and actually I'm interested in hiring somebody to do some motion, but also, junior and more senior level designers. So, because sometimes I just can't do it all. So please contact me if you're interested. And
what would be the best way they could contact you?
They can just actually email me directly.
And then do these people need to be in Napa, or are you willing to work with them remotely?
I can work with someone remotely for sure. A junior designer is better if they're here in Napa, but it just kind of depends on what it is. So if there's a lot of potential there, then I'm willing to work with you.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, Amy,
yeah.
Thank you. See, there's always good stuff at the end. You got to stay to the end. Thanks for everybody coming. And I hope you guys had a good Thanksgiving. And Maya, I hope you had a good Thursday last week, because you don't celebrate Thanksgiving because she's in Norway. I don't think they have Thanksgiving. Maybe every day is Thanksgiving. I don't know. I think everybody else is in America. So, but I will see you guys next week. And I hope you have a great week. And Amy, I'm going to hit stop.